Hope y'all are doing well. Thanks for coming in. Let's talk about today New York City and how it might relate to the what's in the Bible known as Babylon. And we can go into Revelations and even back in the Old Testament and the city of Babel. So is there a relationship and do we kind of need to be watching for it? But first we need to kind of look at what New York City is, what it's about. So New York City, it's more than 8 million people live in the five boroughs, which makes New York City the biggest city in the country. In fact, more people live in New York City than live in most U.S. states. Now, that's why our government's set up the way it is so that one city won't rule the whole country. And that's why we have the electoral system and the way it's set up. Because if we just went by popular vote and they had everybody show up to vote in New York City, then it could pretty much say what the nation is going to do. You put a couple of cities together, New York and San Francisco, LA, and they would rule the nation. So New York City's local government is also the largest of its kind. There are hundreds of city agencies and elected officials at many levels. So this is where government gets into its worst, is when you start having a lot of levels and a lot of different agencies, and everybody's fighting for the dollar and become power hungry. In the Encyclopedia Britannica, New York City in port, located at the mouth of the Hudson River, southeastern New York State, northeastern U.S. It is the largest and most influential American metropolis encompassing Manhattan, Staten Island, the western sections of Long Island, and a small portion of New York State, mainly to the north of Manhattan. So this is kind of giving you the demographics, but one of the things here I wanted to bring up was the port. So that kind of tells us what kind of city we're dealing with. New York is the most ethnically diverse, religiously varied, commercially driven, famously congested, and in the eyes of many, the most attractive urban centers of the country. Now, I don't like New York City. I've been there. Uh, I didn't care for it at all. I don't like not being able to see the country. Not, I didn't like being in there and having buildings that go up to the sky and it's hard to even see the sky. So I wasn't impressed with New York City uh, by being attractive. New York has more Jews than Tel Aviv, more Irish than Dublin, more Italians than Naples, more Puerto Ricans than San Juan. Its symbol is the Statue of Liberty. Now, keep that in mind also. So we're having a very diverse population. It's a port city, and its emblem or its the Statue of Liberty is its symbol. But the metropolis itself is an icon. For the most past 2 centuries, New York has been the largest and wealthiest American city. More than half the people and goods that ever entered the United States came through its ports. Now, keep that in mind. It's a large port. It's commerce, travel, and that stream of commerce has made change a constant presence in city life. It goes on further. New York, while the most American of all the country's cities, does also achieve a reputation as both foreign and fearsome. Foreign and fearsome. So even though it's part of our country, it's kind of looked at as foreign in a sense. A place where turmoil, arrogance, incivility, cruelty tested the stamina of everyone who entered it. I thought that was interesting. That's what I wanted to say. Arrogance. Remember what last week's was? We talked about pride and Satan's pride. Arrogance. It goes on. No one thinks of the place as belonging to a particular state, but the United States. So it's not looked at as being New York, as being New York, New York. It's looked at as being New York, United States, kind of. Um, Once the capital of both its states in the country, New York, at one time when it first started, New York was the original capital, and that's where our capital was. Remember Washington was when after they created the country, he went to a church in New York City near what today it was called Wall Street because it was on the wall of the city. Today it's called Wall Street. We think of that as the economic and trade center for stock trades and stuff. He went to the church there and prayed. New York surpassed such uh, statues to become a world city in both commerce and outlook, and the most famous skyline on earth. It also became a target for international terrorism. So its skyline, it's a world renowned. It's known around the world, and its skyline uh, kind of is the symbol with the Statue of Liberty. So the mayor of New York that we currently have now. This is where it's going to start really getting interesting on what God's going to be doing with this city. Um, we're going to talk about who build the city or cities. So the mayor of New York was recently elected Zoran Mandani. He was born October 18th, 1991 in Kampala, Uganda. He was elected mayor in 2025. So who is this this guy who's the mayor? He's a foreigner. And New York's made up of foreigners. So Mandani has said that grappling with U.S. policy toward Israel and Palestine was a formative political experience. He quotes here as saying, "We say we care about freedom and justice and self-determination, and yet for some reason we draw the line when it comes to Palestinians," he said in 2023 interview. He goes on, "It became a driving force for me. After college, Mandani joined uh, Change Course." But this sounds familiar. Change Course. We had another president that was into this type of profession at the beginning. James Core, a year-long training program for community organizers. Now, remember, that's what President Obama was. He was a community organizer before he became president. But after 6 months, he resigned because he had been organizing a union within the program. So he started this going into this change course, and what he was trying to do was change the core that he was being in and trying to unionize it. And unions, although they started off as being kind of good and helping laborers get the protections and rights that they needed and the pays and medical and working conditions that they needed. Now it's blossomed into a political and even a authoritarian system. And the union became uh, in the old days we heard about the union bosses. Union boss, and if you didn't do it their way, they'd break your leg, kind of. So within the program, organizing a union within the program, and believed that he was about to be fired. He worked on one of his mother's films and formed a hip hop duo with a childhood friend. So what he did was he was going to get fired, so he went to work for his mom's film industry. His family had a lot of money. That's where his money comes from. So he didn't really have a job per se. He just started making these films and becoming a podcast celebrity. And that's where the problem comes with the way people look at if they see someone who they think is a popular podcaster or celebrity, then they lean towards voting for him, regardless of what the person is. Where it goes on, Mandani struck a decidedly progressive tone in his inaugural address when he was elected mayor, delivered after being sworn in by Sanders. And that's Bernie Sanders. Bernie Sanders is a socialist communist senator, saying he would not abandon my principles for fear of being deemed radical. So he goes on. I got this from Zohan Mandani, New York City mayor. You can see this if you go on to the uh, address here, Frontline Bible Studies, go to Ancient Eyes, and you can actually read this transcript that I'm reading from. So it's from Britannica. So let us see if New York is going to fit these descriptions. So Revelations 18, chapter 18, verse 1. And after these things, I saw another angel come out from heaven, having great power, and the earth was lightened with his glory. So he had great power. He was emitting light, and the earth was lightened with his glory. Revelation 18:2. And he cried mightily with a strong voice, saying, Babylon the great is fallen, and is become the habitation of devils, and the hold of every foul spirit, and cage of every unclean and hateful bird. Excuse me. So he's saying that Babylon has become even more of an unclean city than what it was born in. So I had to get a drink of water. So Babylon became full of fallen devils, a very foul spirit. So it's become spirit. Devils here is 1142 in the Strong's Concordance, a demon or supernatural spirit, devil, and now meaning demon, evil spirit. Hold, stronghold, the hold of every foul spirit is 5438, a guarding or the act, the person, figuratively, the place, the condition, the time, as a division of the day and night, literally or figuratively, a cage, a hold, a ward. Remember that Newark divided into wards. I thought that was kind of interesting. Now the spirit is 4151 from the Strong's, a current of air, i.e. breath, or a breeze, a spirit, i.e. the rational soul. Vital principle, mental disposition, uh, or superhuman, and angel, demon, divine, God, Christ, spirit, ghost. So it gives some examples there of what a spirit is, and also it could be an evil spirit. Let's go to Isaiah, where it talks about Babylon. Isaiah 13:19. In Babylon, the glory of kingdoms, the beauty of the Chaldees, excellency shall be as when God overthrew Sodom and Gomorrah. Now, I thought this was interesting in Isaiah the prophet, as in Sodom and Gomorrah. So if New York is relating to Babylon, is it going to suffer the same destruction of Sodom and Gomorrah? Now, if you watch last week's Pride, the sins of pride, you'll see Sodom and Gomorrah and what happened to it. So Jeremiah 51:8, Babylon is suddenly fallen and destroyed. Howl for her, take palm for her, if so be she may be healed. So what it's talking about, Jeremiah is saying that basically you need to pray that she'll be healed. Turn away, Babylon will turn away from the sins. Isaiah 14:23. I will also make it a possession for the bittern in pools of water, and I will sweep it with the besom of destruction, saith the Lord of hosts. It's going to destroy us, what he's saying. Babylon. So we go to Mark chapter 5, verses 2 and 3. And when he was come out of the ship, immediately there met him out of the tombs a man with an unclean spirit, who had his dwelling among the tombs, and no man could bind him, no, not with chains. So that kind of gives you an example of what evil spirits are. They almost can't be bound, they can't be controlled. So are we seeing evil spirits in the city of New York today? Is there evil taking place? Are there people possessed running the streets of New York? Are they pushing innocent people, elderly people like myself, in front of the trains to be killed, attacking them on the streets? After a basketball game they destroyed, and they think that's right for them to be able to destroy other people's property, destroy property, even injure people because of a basketball game? Let's go to Revelation 18:3. For all nations have drunk of the wine of the wrath of her fornication. Think about that. All nations, we're in New York City. And the kings of the earth have committed fornication with her. And the merchants, now merchants is 1713 of the Strongs, which is the base of 4198, a wholesale tradesman merchant. The merchants of the earth are waxed rich with the abundance of her delicacies. Delicacies is 4764 of the Strongs. Staining, strenuous, or strength, i.e., luxury, uh, delicacy. Let's go to Isaiah 47:15. Thus shall they be unto thee with whom thou hast labored, even thy merchants from thy youth. They shall wander every one to his quarter. None shall save thee. Back to Revelations 18:4. And I heard another voice come from heaven saying, Come out of her, my people, that ye be not partakers of her sins, and that ye receive not her plagues. Now, what God's saying is leave the city, this Babylon, this city of sin. Come out of this city of merchants and merchandise and richness and abominations. Come out of her, lest you suffer the plagues that are going to be coming upon her. Go to Jeremiah 58. Remove out of the midst of Babylon and go forth out of the land of the Chaldeans and be as the goats before the flocks. And then others leave, go away. Genesis 19, verses 12 and 13. And the men said unto Lot, Hast thou heard any besides, son-in-law? Now, I'm reading this because the mayor of New York has made safe zones for transgenders in New York City, for people who are going through these changes or and you can go last week on the Pride and you'll find out more about this. So come out of her, and thy sons and thy daughters, and whatsoever thou hast in the city, bring them out of this place, for we will destroy this place. Now, this is the angels talking to Lot. For we will destroy this place because the cry of them is waxing great before the face of the Lord, and the Lord hath sent us to destroy it. These two angels, now angels are powerful. There's good angels, there's bad angels, and these are the good angels sent by God with a mission to destroy Sodom and Gomorrah. They're telling Lot to get these people out, and they're going to be destroyed with them. So back to Revelations 18:5. This is a warning to New York City, by the way, that I just read. For her sins have reached unto heaven, and God hath remembered her iniquities. Are the sins of New York City reached unto heaven? How much more is going to be going on before God hears it and does something? Let's go to Genesis 18:20-21. And the Lord said, Because the cry of Sodom and Gomorrah is great, and because their sin is very grievous, I will go now and see whether they have done altogether according to the cry of it, which is come out unto me. And if not, I will know. God himself has taken an interest. Revelations 18:6, reward her even as she rewarded you. If the communist takes all the money and your property and your buildings, are you going to give them rewards for that? And double unto her, double according to her works, and the cup which she hath filled, fill to her double. Now this is the cup of abomination, a cup of judgment that's coming. Remember in the book of Revelations, it talks about the cups, the vials, and there's 7 vials and 7 cups, and they pour out. Psalms 137:8. O daughter of Babylon, who art to be destroyed, happy shall he be that rewarded thee as thou hast served us. Think about it. Revelations 18:7. How much she hath glorified herself and lived deliciously, so much torment and sorrow give her. For she saith in her heart, I sit a queen and am no widow. I shall see no sorrow. Very prideful. Go to Ezekiel 28:2. Son of man, say unto the prince of Tyrus, Thus say the Lord God, because thine heart is lifted up, and thou hast said, I am a God, I sit in the sea of God, in the midst of the seas. Seas here is in the midst of the people, yet thou art a man, and not God, though thou set thine heart as the heart of God. So he's warning you, he's telling you, you're getting too arrogant. You're beginning to think you're too powerful. Go to Zephaniah 2, verse 15. This is the rejoicing city that dwelt carelessly, that said in her heart, I am, and there is none beside me. How did she become a desolation, a place for beasts to lie down in? Every one that passes by her shall hiss and wag his head. It's gonna be bad. So the I am, where it says the heart I am, there is none beside me. That's God's formula from Exodus 3, verse 14, and you'll hear God use his name I am. Back to Revelations 18:8. Therefore shall her plagues come in one day, death and mourning and famine, and she shall be utterly burned with fire, for strong is the Lord who judges her. It's going to happen in one day. This judgment's going to come in one day. Isaiah 47:9. But these two things shall come to thee in a moment, in one day, the loss of children, the widowhood, they shall come upon thee in their perfection, for the multitude of their sorceries, and for the great abundance of thy enchantments. Jeremiah 50:34. Their Redeemer is strong. The Lord of hosts is his name. He shall thoroughly plead their cause, and he may give rest to the land that disquiet the inhabitants of Babylon. The Lord is the Redeemer. That's who you need to turn to. That's where New York needs to turn to now. Genesis 19:24. Then the Lord rained upon Sodom and Gomorrah brimstone, fire from the Lord out of heaven. So destruction comes from God. He's the Redeemer, or he can destroy. Back to Revelations 18:9. And the kings of the earth who have committed fornication and lived deliciously with her shall bewail her and lament for her when they shall see the smoke of her burning. So remember the 9/11 when the planes flew into the Twin Towers and the smoke was rising up? I remember that. I was working internal affairs, and before I went into the office that day, I turned on the TV while I was getting ready to go to work, and I saw the first tower had been hit by a plane, and the smoke was coming up. And I won't say exactly what I said, but it really stinks to be a fireman and have to go up there to fight that. I probably have to cop instead. Then when I got to the office, I turned on the TV in my office. I was a lieutenant in charge of internal affairs, and I saw the second plane hit. Back to Ezekiel 26:16. Then all the princes of the sea shall come down from their thrones and lay away their robes and put off their broidered garments. They shall clothe themselves with trembling. They shall sit upon the ground, shall tremble at every moment and astonish at thee. Jeremiah 50:46. At the noise of the taking of Babylon, the earth is moved, and the cry is heard among the nations. Genesis 19:28. And he looked toward Sodom and Gomorrah, and toward all the land of the plain, and beheld, and lo, the smoke of the country went up as the smoke as a furnace. And that's kind of what it looked like at 9/11. This next one's going to be a lot worse. Revelations 18:10. Standing afar off for the fear of her torment, saying, Alas, alas, the great city Babylon, that mighty city, for 1 hour is thy judgment come. It's not going to take days and days and months and years. It's going to have this judgment's going to take place in 1 hour. And that's kind of what happened on 9/11. Isaiah 21:9. And behold, here cometh a chariot of men with a couple of horsemen, and he answered and said, Babylon is fallen, and all the graven images of her gods he hath broken unto the ground. I mean, I think of all the imagery that we have in New York City. You have Radio City Music Hall, but in Times Square, you have all those billboards and things. You have the center, you have and on Wall Street, you have the bull and the Wall Street stuff. So Ezekiel 27:27, thy riches and thy fairs, thy merchandise, thy mariners and thy pilots, thy flunkiers and thy occupiers of the merchandise, and all thy men of war that are in thee and in thy company, which is in the midst of thee, shall fall into the midst of the seas in the day of thy ruin. Back to Revelation 18:12. The merchandise of gold, silver, precious stones, and of pearls fine linen, purple, silk, scarlet, and all thine wood, and all manner of vessels of ivory, and all manner of vessels of most precious wood, of brass and iron and marble. 13. The cinnamon, the odors, the ointments, the frankincense, the wine, the oil, the fine flour, the wheat, the beast, the sheep, the horses, the chariots, the slaves, the souls of men. Revelation 18:14. And the fruits that thy soul lusted after are departed from thee, and all things which were dainty and goodly are departed from thee, and thou shalt find them no more at all. 15. The merchants of these things, which were made rich by her, shall stand afar off of the fear of her torment, weeping and wailing. They're going to be crying. 16, and saying, Alas, alas, the great city that was clothed in fine linen and purple and scarlet and decked with gold, precious stones and pearls. 17, for in 1 hour so great riches is come to naught. The money's not going to buy you. All these rich people, all these people who are looking towards money, and you have to think about that. All these politicians who go in poor and come out rich from politics, that money's not going to buy them any because you can't take that with you to heaven. So, and every shipmaster and all the company in ships and sailors, and as many as trade by sea, stood afar off. So they're standing back and they're looking. If you remember on 9/11, there were photographs and pictures from across the bay looking at the city of New York with the towers burning. Ezekiel 27:29. And all that handle the oar, the mariners, and all the pilots, and the sea shall come down from your ships. They shall stand upon the land. And that kind of reminds me one of the times when I was in New York City, and you take a ferry out to the Statue of Liberty, and you're kind of looking back from Statue of Liberty or Ellis Island, the immigrants where my ancestors came through in the early part of the 1900s, early 1910, 1915, 1920. They came to this country, then they came through Ellis Island. Revelation 18:18. And cried when they saw the smoke of her burning, saying, What city is like unto this great city? 19. And they cast dust on their heads. That's a way of lamentation, of feeling sorrow, and cried, weeping and wailing, saying, Alas, alas, that great city wherein which were made rich all that had ships in the sea by reason of her costliness. Because of her money, there's all these ships. For in 1 hour she is made desolate. Go to Ezekiel 27:30. And shall cause their voice to be heard against thee, and shall cry bitterly, and shall cast up dust upon their heads. They shall wallow themselves in the ashes. Revelation 18:20. Rejoice over her, thou heaven, and ye holy apostles and prophets, for God hath avenged you on her. God's going to get revenge. He's the one that makes judgment. 18:21. And a mighty angel took up a stone like a great millstone and cast it into the sea, saying, Thus with violence shall the great city Babylon be thrown down, and shall be found no more at all. It's not going to be in existence. It won't be found anymore. Let's go to Jeremiah 51:64. And thou shalt say, Thus shall Babylon sink, and shall not rise from the evil that I will bring upon her, and they shall be wearied. Thus for the words of Jeremiah. Let's go to Daniel the prophet. Chapter 2, verse 34. Thou sawest till that a stone was cut out without hands, which smote the image upon his feet that were of iron and clay, and broke them in pieces. So that's the statue that Daniel prophesies to the Ezra, where he had a statue with the head of gold and the shoulders silver and steel and bronze, but the feet were of clay and iron, which don't mix. Clay being symbolic probably of uh, men made from the dirt. So Revelations 18:22. And the voices of harpers, musicians, and pipers, and trumpeters shall be heard no more. There's like Radio City Music Hall and all those places, all this sound, all this noise. Remember, the mayor was a podcaster and did that hip hop stuff, which I think music can move the soul. So if your music is evil, what's the soul? Shall be heard no more in all of thee. No craftsman of whatsoever craft he be shall be found any more in thee. And the sound of a millstone shall be heard no more. The labors, the daily activity, no more at all in thee. 23. And the light of a candle shall shine no more at all in thee. You ever see New York City and you walk through New York City during at night and you see all the lights and all that uh, signs and billboards? No more. And the voice shall sign no more, and the voice of the bridegroom and of the bride shall be heard no more at all in thee, for thy merchants were the great men of the earth, for by thy sorceries were all nations deceived. Let's go to Isaiah 23:8 real quick. Who hath taken this counsel against Tyre, the crowning city, whose merchants are princes, whose traffickers are the honorable of the earth? So Tyrus is that trade center from that time period. It was a great trade center uh, on the coast, and all merchandise moved in through it, and that's kind of the way New York is. So Revelations 18:24, and in her was found the blood of prophets and of saints and of all that were slain upon the earth. There's a lot of evil that takes place in the cities, big cities, and it's brought about by the spirit and the souls that are in there, and they kill the innocent. Jeremiah 51:49, as Babylon hath caused the slain of Israel to fall, so at Babylon shall fall the slain of all the earth. So who builds cities? Where do these big cities come from? And does it give us any insight on the spiritual nature of big cities? So let's go to Genesis chapter 4, starting with verse 16. And Cain went out from the presence of the Lord. Remember, Cain slew Abel, his righteous brother, because he was jealous in his pride. He became angry and hateful. Cain, and he was the twin, you could say, of Abel from Eve, Adam and Eve. That's another story to go into. And dwelt in the land of Nod on the east of Eden. So he left. He left after God put a mark on him. Remember, and he went through that. You can go through and read all that. We don't have time. 17, and Cain knew his wife and conceived and bare Enoch. Now, this Enoch is not the same Enoch that we'll be covering this week on. Enoch, I guess it's like a common name, like we name people Sam or George or whatever. So Enoch was the name is given, but it's not Enoch that was righteous to God. That he builded a city. Cain built a city and called the name of the city after the name of his son Enoch. So the first city builders was Cain, that we know are Cain. So there's no wonder there's so much crime and violence in the cities. Let's go to Revelation 16:17. And the seventh angel poured out his vial into the air. Now, we have to keep in mind here that President Trump is a good builder. He builds things. One of the big downfalls that he may be bringing judgment on himself was when he said that if it wasn't for him, Israel wouldn't exist. God is in control. God is the one who puts people in or moves nations or whatever to protect other nations or to protect Israel. So for him to take pride in himself, he's putting himself in the same pride and arrogance that brings destruction. So Revelation 16:17, and the seventh angel poured out his vial into the air, and there came a great voice out of the temple of heaven and the throne saying, it is done, it's over. 18, and there were voices of thunders and lightnings, and there was a great earthquake, such as was not since men were upon the earth, so mighty an earthquake and so great. 19, and the great city was divided into three parts, and the cities of the nations fell, and great Babylon came into remember. So when God returns and he's bringing destruction, people are going to remember Babylon falling. and the destruction that happened there and the division. This city that's being divided into three parts is Jerusalem. Before God to give unto her the cup of the wine of the fierceness of his wrath. That's what the Revelations, that's what it's bringing back in mind to Babylon and the wrath of God. 20. And every island fled away, and the mountains were not found. 21. And there fell upon men a great hail out of heaven, every stone about the weight of a talent. It's about 200 pounds. Can you imagine a 200-pound hailstone falling on your car or house? And men blasphemed God because of the plague of the hail. So they were cursing God. Instead of turning to God and asking for deliverance, instead of obeying God, they were blaspheming, they were cursing God. For the plague there was exceeding great. So this destruction is going to be great, and it's going to come with a lot of people going to. That's where it says they prayed for the mountains to fall on the south to hide them, or flee to the mountains. People need to leave New York City. I don't want to live in New York City, but uh, I feel like there's going to be a great destruction. It's coming to the point where the sin and the cries are going to go up to heaven, and God's going to bring judgment on it. He doesn't sit there forever, just like Sodom and Gomorrah, just like the Babylon of old. Uh, just the same as he's done, he's put nations into captivity. And this nation, New York City, which was attacked by the Muslims on 9/11, attacked before that again. They tried to bring down the Trade Center with bombs underneath it by the Muslims, and now the Muslims are in control of New York City. So they've succeeded, and they're going to take away and they're going to bring in the abominations of desolation. So I'm not saying all Muslims are bad, but the ones who are in charge or bringing this about, these aren't, and maybe it's not just that one group of people, but that type of people. And we see this in all the politicians that are running this country. So many of them are in for their own selves and for their own prosperity and for their own merchandising and trading and building up their own wealth. And that's the kind of people we're talking about, the ones who are running New York City today. So that's why you probably would be wise to leave New York City and find someplace else to occupy. Probably not a big city, but think about it. I wanted to bring this warning because of what's going on today and what's happening in the country and what's taking place. And I feel like that we need to be warned and at least think about it, if nothing else. So thanks for joining me. Hope to see you next week and watch the Sabbath service.